Everyone. I am Sharon Whitehill. I'm your worship associate this morning, and I'll begin with this. I am a pale-skinned woman of a certain age, still with mostly brown hair in the back, but silver in my bangs. I'm wearing a bright yellow top and earrings that don't match, even though I'm usually a very symmetrical person. I have one, the crab, this is my zodiac sign, and the other is the Grinch, which tells you about my attitude toward Christmas. This is a small gesture of nonconformity that might give you a clue to my character. So, welcome to the Unitarian and Universalist Fellowship of Charlotte County, also known as UUFCC. The service is being broadcast live via YouTube, and it will be available for future viewing. All this is made possible by our technology support, Corey and Tom and Sue. Thank you all. We're also happy to have our summer choir today, of which I am a equally happy part. And thank you to Janet for being our intrepid leader. One needs to be intrepid to cope with us all. Before we begin, we have printed some order of service papers for anyone who needs them. If you don't have one, raise your hand and I'm sure someone will. Yes? No? All right. Laura was dismayed last Sunday because she printed some and nobody took one. So here comes Susie with some extras. And they're very nice. Yes, we have a tree-saving version, electronic version on the way. By the way, this will not be a constant offer to you. This is a good time to remind you also to silence your cell phones for the service. I will remind you at the conclusion to turn them back on. And if you're at home, please have a chalice or a candle ready for lighting during our chalice lighting ritual. When we're finished, I invite you to join us on the patio out through that door to my right, if you will, unless you have difficulties, and then feel free to exit by the double doors in the front where you came in. I want to thank, who made coffee today? Anyone? Was it John? Louise? Lisa. Thank you. Pardon me for my hearing difficulties. Lisa, thank you for making the coffee today. We all thank you for that. So now, welcome to our service. We welcome you no matter who you are, where you come from, whom you love. We will support you no matter your gender identification, your skin color, or where you are on your life path. Are you a traditional believer, an atheist, an agnostic, a Buddhist, or a pagan? We embrace any and all because we believe that the spirit of love is what binds us together, giving dignity, meaning, worth, and joy to all our days. If you are new here this morning, and I think we have a couple whom I would like to welcome. Would you mind standing up? I've sneaked over there and found out this is Hillary and Bill. Good morning. Hillary and Steve. Oh, and I was thinking that when I met you and I didn't say it. I beg your pardon. Hillary and Steve, forever after Steve. Where are you from?
Northport.
Oh, Northport. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming all this way. Very, very glad to have you here. Oh, dear. If you would like to learn more about this fellowship, email Mary Jane at office@uufcc.org, and perhaps you'd like to sign our book out at the front desk, Hillary and Steve. If you haven't already, you'd like to get on the list to receive our weekly newsletter, that would be great. No matter any of that, we are glad you've chosen to spend your Sunday morning with us, all of you. Our prelude this morning is hymn number 23, Bring Many Names, the first 3 verses. Correct? Yes. The time has arrived for our chalice lighting now. If you're watching from home and have your candle available to light whenever John lights our fellowship candle, that would be great. Today's chalice lighting words are an amended version of The Freedom of Faith by Heather K. Januels. Our prophets died for the freedom of faith. We are here in their spirit. We are here to light a chalice in our free faith. We are here seeking that freedom to be loved as ourselves, to grow beyond imagination. As we light this flame, let us give thanks for the gift of gathering here. Now please join me in reciting our affirmation, followed by a musical meditation. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration: dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. We should have a choir loft behind me. It would be a great deal easier. It is my privilege now to introduce Reverend Byrd Tetzlaff. She has written a biographical introduction that I liked so much I thought I would simply read it to you as she has written it. She was born and raised in Wisconsin in a highly religious family. Sadly, that religion didn't take. By the age of 5, she was arguing with the authorities, in that case her mother, about certain theological ideas. By the age of 12, she knew she would not be joining the church she was raised in. When she started college, she went church shopping, tried on different theologies. Many of those churches were wonderful places with marvelous people and ministers, but there was always a major stumbling block about the theology that she just couldn't buy into. So by age 21, she had just about given up finding a compatible church when she heard about a small congregation that the local county law clerk was trying to shut down on grounds they were teaching their kids pornography. You can guess what the denomination was. Intrigued, she decided to investigate. It turns out that church was a UU church doing a pilot program in teaching sex education to children, with all the proper safeguards of parental knowledge, involvement, and permission. That first Sunday that she attended, it happened to be the date that daylight saving time kicked in, so she arrived an hour early, and the parking lot was empty. She sat there for a while. Then she decided to investigate the building, which was open. Inside this church were posters and decorations about Judaism, paganism, humanism, Buddhism, as well as Christianity. Suddenly she felt completely comfortable, as if she had come home for the first time. I know many of you share that, a similar moment when it happened to you. At age 35, then, she entered Meadville Lombard Seminary in Chicago. She did her internship at Second Church in Chicago, and she has served 4 different congregations since then. In 2010, she became disabled, and so is currently retired and living in South Bend, Indiana, where she runs, I love this, a small animal ministry, does artwork, and preaches to various UU congregations on Zoom. So now, please welcome Reverend Byrd as she opens the service with these words.
Recently, Harvard appointed a self-identified atheist to be the head chaplain of the university, and as such, he will be the head of the entire chaplaincy program. Harvard, it is noted, is a leading, if not the leading, theological seminary in the United States. As you might guess, there was considerable controversy about this decision. There are real questions over whether or not an atheist can head up a theological seminary. As a vowed theist, I say, why not? After all, aren't we all asking the same questions? Aren't we all concerned about how we treat one another? Aren't we all just trying to get along the best we can with our highest understanding of what is right? Do we really need to be coming from the same place in order to arrive at compatible ethical decisions? Maybe, just maybe, there is room for alternate visions of reality.
Our tradition here at UUFCC is to share our joys and sorrows and life milestones by entering them into a book of life. It's also known as the Red Book. It lives back there on the table to your right as you come in. If you are not going to be present, you can email your milestones to bookoflife@uufcc.org by Saturday, and the worship associate will enter it into the Red Book for you. Susie, would you bring the book up, please? Thank you very much. I always look forward to opening this book and seeing what awaits me. Although, turn it right side up, it's a good thing. August 21st. Susie Barbie had hot water from her new heater by 3 p.m. by 3 p.m. on Monday. She was thankful. Yay, Susie. Mark Ellison returned this week after a 3-month, 7,500-mile motorcycle trip. Sandy T is very happy that he is home. And I have an entry that came in at bookoflife.org. This is from Linda Himes, and this will catch many of you up on her situation if you were unaware of it. Linda writes, I was in terrible pain last October. I was able to get in pain management to lessen the severity by November. After several orthopedic doctors, an MRI, and several misdiagnoses, I found an orthopedic surgeon in Fort Myers who got me to the answer. He repaired my labral tear and reshaped my femur, and as I recover, I know I will be all right. During my recovery, and this is germane to the skits we saw a few weeks ago, I received meals and many cards from my UUFCC family. I would like to thank the wonderful, generous people of the Caring Committee for reaching out to me and letting me know I could turn to them for help. I will still be restricted to using my brace and walker until early September, but the pain has just become post-op soreness from healing and therapy. And she adds, unfortunately, during my time at home and in communicating with a friend back home in Buffalo, I discovered Ron, the husband of my lifelong friend Laura, who is also the matron of honor at my wedding, was very recently diagnosed with ALS. She asked me to join the prayer chain for him. As an atheist, I have my own way to pray, so I am taking this opportunity to ask as many of you as are willing to join in. Thank you, and blessed be, from Linda H. May we hold these milestones and one another in the love and tenderness of our fellowship, a source of strength and comfort, courage and hope in the days and weeks ahead. And now for our sermon.
The sermon title today is In Praise of Agnosticism from a Theist. And I happen to be that theist. Don't hold that against me. I'm really a very nice person. Now, you might be wondering why a theist is here to talk about, praise, and maybe even recommend agnosticism. Well, partly it's because I'm fascinated about what people think about how things work. What is ultimate reality, the meaning of life? What started it all? What comes next? Those are all fairly important questions. And in most UU circles, conversations about any of these are fairly safe. We can actually enjoy hearing what each other has to say and not be threatened by it. I love that. And it's a huge part of why I am a UU. Now, I am going to start with a bit of theology, and it is going to be old hat for most of you. You already know this, but allow me a moment to define the terms. Broadly speaking, there are three main categories of theology. Atheism, a belief that there is no God and this life is all there is. Usually, but not always, atheists tend to be highly scientifically oriented. Now, there are those who maintain that an atheist doesn't really believe there's no God. They're just very mad at her. And that is true for some. But I think it's condescending and highly inaccurate to assume that all atheists are just in denial. It's simply not true. Some folks have come to believe that there is no God for a huge variety of reasons. Atheism is a reasonable theological stance, and to dismiss it out of hand is unwarranted. Many folks have said that there are no atheists in foxholes. Respectfully, I disagree. There are many atheists in foxholes, and I don't think they are any more terrified than the theists next to them. Theism, another theological stance, is a belief in some sort of higher power, usually a creator. And theism ranges from monotheism, a belief in just one God, to polytheism, which includes many gods. Usually, a belief in a creator being maintains that he, she, or it is involved in our lives to some extent or another. It often implies that there's something more than just this life, and there's usually a stated purpose for our existence. I should mention here there is a subset of theism called deism. And that's the belief there was a creator God who made everything in the universe and then went off to fly a kite or something. And that God is not involved in creation as it is now. Again, there are critics who maintain that theists are just people who need security and thus invent a God. And again, I think it is hubris to dismiss someone else's beliefs. You never know what that someone else has experienced. Now, right between theism and atheism is agnosticism. Agnostics believe that we don't know whether or not there is a creative, self aware force. Militant agnostics would go further and say it is not possible to know. True agnostics have enough intellectual honesty to admit they don't have all the answers, and they tend to doubt anyone who does. And there are those who maintain that agnostics are really just atheists who have trouble with commitment. But I disagree. An agnostic may lean either towards atheism or theism, but true agnostics remain open minded within their doubts. And frankly, that's somewhat rare. Okay, so those are the terms I'm dealing with. Now, about Unitarian Universalism, as you know, we are not a religion of dogma. We don't tell folks what to believe. In my not too humble opinion, we are a religion of values, not creeds. And in a healthy UU congregation, you have a huge variety of beliefs. You might have Christians and Buddhists, pagans, Taoists, atheists, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, all sitting down together. And sometimes we even talk theology. And that's okay. No one's going to poke anybody else in the nose for what they believe. Most UUs would agree that we come to our understandings of ultimate reality based on our personal life, our experiences, and our reactions to those experiences, the people we've known, the things we've seen, the books we've read, the movies, the stories we've heard, the classes we've taken, all of that and so much more have gone into our understandings. And no two of us have the same set of experiences. So it makes sense that we will not all think alike, that we will not all have the same understandings. And as for me to tell you what to believe, well, that's just downright rude. That would invalidate your life and your experiences. It would be saying that my life and my experiences somehow have more validity than yours. I'm not willing to go there. I think what really makes us work, despite our theological differences, is that most of us UUs have at least a touch of agnosticism in us. I mean, some of us are pretty sure we know what we know, but most of us think that maybe, just maybe, someone else's insights or experiences might have value for us. I'm a theist. So what? You may have come to a completely different understanding and for valid reasons, just as I come to my understanding for valid reasons. And as Unitarian Universalists, it simply does not matter that we think differently. It's not important. What is important is, how do we treat each other? How do we live our lives? Our various theologies are interesting, fascinating even, and our beliefs certainly influence our actions. But I'd like to point out that both a theist and an atheist can be loving and kind, have high moral values. Both can choose to be honest, thoughtful, caring, and deep thinkers. And if our ethics come from different reasonings, but we end in similar places, does it really matter? Both theism and atheism have truth claims. We know what we know, and we know that we're right. And that's why I really admire agnosticism, because agnosticism does not have a truth claim. And because of that, it leaves room for all of us. And agnosticism leaves room for appreciation. If I am an agnostic, I can appreciate the atheist's use of logic and scientific method to figure things out. I can admire their self-reliance and how they insist that justice has to come from our hands and not leave it up to some otherworldly judging. If I am an agnostic, I can see the value that the theist might have from seeing that all humanity is their brothers and sisters. I can see how they can approach the world with wonder and awe at the miracles they see. I can see that by having faith, they think they can move mountains. And sometimes they do. Like I said, I'm a theist, but I have chosen to borrow wisdom from agnosticism. I suspect that most of us UUs do that, even as we grow in our own understandings. But as with every philosophy, there are also downsides to agnosticism. Remember, in effect, agnosticism is a philosophy of self-admitted ignorance. Agnosticism says, we don't know and you don't either. And that can be scary. We may not even know what questions to ask, but human beings crave answers. We want to know. The atheist uses reason and logic to find those answers. A theist uses faith or intuition. An agnostic offers only doubt to any answer, however it is arrived at. And for some of us, this can be problematic. Folks in both of the extreme theological camps, atheism and theism, think they know the answers. But the universe is such a vast, multi-layered reality. There may be a whole bunch of things going on that we have no concept of. It is possible that we know nothing of certain things that are influencing us greatly. There may actually be different planes of existence that we currently know nothing about. And we don't know how all this came about. How come we're here? What's going on? And I don't know right now if I am talking theology or science. And agnosticism isn't sure either. Maybe there was a creative force that had self-awareness, something that we might call God. Maybe this universe is all just an accident with no thought or plan whatsoever behind it. We really don't know. I recently saw this quote about the history of physics. Aristotle said a bunch of stuff that was wrong. Galileo and Newton fixed things up, and then Einstein broke everything again. Now, basically, we have it all worked up, except for small stuff, big stuff, hot stuff, cold stuff, fast stuff, heavy stuff, dark stuff, turbulence, and the concept of time. I love it that our understanding is always growing and changing. And it's true for theology as well as science. To think that with our tiny little human minds, knowing so very little about what really is, to think that we could figure it all out seems ludicrous to me. We truly don't know. We only have our personal experiences and what they have taught us. And no matter who we are, that's very limited. Sadly, some folks on both sides like to set up a war between logic and faith. They will go on and on about how one is superior to the other. They will point out with absolute sincerity how their stance is best. But I happen to think that we need both reason and intuition, logic and faith to make sense of things. Either one without the other is kind of frightening. Cold, hard reasoning scares me. There's no room for humanity, mercy. Blind faith equally disturbs me. There's nothing to hold on to, no sanity, no principles. I find both extremes very unattractive. Ah, but the balance of both, that works. And agnosticism makes room. Sometimes even embraces both. And I'm not completely convinced that either atheism or theism does make room, although they can if they allow just a touch of agnosticism. So my personal spiritual journey has led me to a particular set of beliefs, and I do believe them. But I have to say, I think agnosticism may be the only truly honest theological stance. So be it.
Thank you, Reverend Byrd. I think that touch of agnosticism is something we could all use. I certainly can include myself in that. Very, very, very interesting and worth listening to. Thank you. We all know that this beloved congregation exists because of our generous support. We're aware that it's both our privilege and our responsibility to make sure that it endures. We can honor pledges or donations right here today or on Venmo online. Just be sure to label any donation other than pledges on the check's memo line. For anyone with us for the first time, and that would be Hillary and Steve, please consider yourselves our guests today and feel free not to make any donation. We will now have the offering. The time is upon us once again when we highlight UUFCC's special events and activities. These are also listed in Mary Jane's updates, which is the very best way to stay connected and keep up with our ongoing activities. There's a full calendar for the week, all the links you need for connecting through Zoom, highlights to be read aloud at the service. Everything is there. So mail your announcements to Book of Life at uufcc.org and be sure and check those updates. They come to you every week on the mailing list. We have an announcement that I will read. Charlotte County won't go back. Organizing transportation for a major Bands Off Our Bodies. There's a march in Tallahassee, Saturday, August 27th at 5 p.m. That is next Saturday, this coming Saturday. The organizers plan to rent a 15-passenger van and split the cost. Are looking for volunteers, too, to drive there and back. Plan is to leave on the 27th at 9:30. Return home after the rally, which runs from 5 to 7 p.m. Estimated time of arrival back home then would be between 1 and 2 a.m. So please sign up on their Facebook account if you're interested. Charlotte County Won't Go Back is the organization, or Stephanie Miro on Facebook, or I think the best thing to do for us, call Betty Bariga. Here, Betty, raise your hand. There she is. And her number is in the directory. Second announcement. Are you interested in becoming a Sunday director? I thanked earlier those technical people who keep this electronic aspect of our service viable, and they need somebody to back them up and step in so that they can live the rest of their lives somewhere other than here, helping us from time to time. So please join us in the sanctuary starting at 11:45 next Sunday, August 28th, after the service. I'm sure this will be read again next Sunday to remind you. This is an informal meeting for those interested, and a training. So the tech people really hope that you will take advantage of this opportunity. A fourth third announcement. Join us for P-Flag, parents of LGBTQ children, parents and supporters of. There's also a meeting of the P-Flag members today in the social hall at noon after the service. So after coffee and what have you out on the patio and time to socialize, please come back in at noon, and they plan to show some wonderful videos. Our closing words, again, we turn these over to Reverend Byrd Tetzloff, and this is a poem that she will tell you about and share with you.
This poem is My Church. I would not want to go. I'm sorry, I had my sound on. I would not want to go to a church where there were no pagans. I would miss the reverence for nature and the promise of magic. I would not want to go to a church where there were no Christians. I would miss the emphasis on love and forgiveness. I would not want to go to a church where there were no atheists. I would miss the love of science and knowledge. I would not want to go to a church where there were no Jews. I would miss the sense of tradition rooted in history. I would not want to go to a church where there were no agnostics. I would miss the constant, honest questioning. I would not want to go to a church where there were no Buddhists. I would miss the stillness, the mindfulness. I would not want to go to a church where there were no Muslims. I would miss the concern for the well-being of all. I would not want to go to a church where there were no humanists. I would miss the appreciation of human potential. I would not want to go to a church that lacked any of these, because, you see, I am greedy. I want it all. I want my spiritual path to be crowded with seekers of goodwill, excited about life's questions, open to possibilities, passionate about justice, looking for answers, reaching out a helping hand, and loving life. So be it.
Please, and the great books that you have. Please join us.
Is the greatest gift of all, the riches on this earth. Life and its creatures, great and small, of high and lowly birth. So treasure it and measure it with deeds of shining worth. Mine is the brightest gift of all, its thought no barrier bars. It's each creation's hidden plan, its Christ surmounts all bars. It rains the wind, it changes the storms, it weighs the outmost stars. We are of life, its shining gift, the measure of all things. Up from the dust the temples lift, our vision soars on wings. For seed and root, for flower and fruit, our grateful spirit sings.
Please join me now in our ritual words for extinguishing the chalice as John does the deed of extinguishing a flame. Following Go Now in Peace, you're invited to stay for our social time, as I said earlier, outdoors on the patio. And this is my cue also to remind you to wake up your electronic devices. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of community. Oh, I didn't realize I was, I had a competitor. Very nicely done. Thank you all. Go now in peace.